I'm Sienna, 35-year-old. I'm standing barefoot on the warm wood floor, coffee in hand, in a house they swore I would never deserve. The morning sunlight spills through the tall windows, soft and golden like it knows I won. The silence wraps around me, not empty, but earned, the kind that settles after years of being talked over. It said. Forgotten. This silence is mine now. I sip slowly, letting it fill me instead of drown me. Across the foyer, the sculpture I finished last week casts a crooked shadow on the marble, twisted steel welded into a bloom. It looks broken, but only if you don't know what healing actually feels like. Then I hear her voice. Naomi, singing something from the kitchen. Half humming, half laughing. It floats toward me like a memory. Light and familiar. And then the doorbell. My hand freezes around the mug. I glance toward the security feed. There they are. Evelyn. Diane. Brandon. Still dressed in soft colors like nothing ever happened. Still smiling like the silence was mutual. As if a decade of erasure can be smoothed over with a smile and a pastel blouse. But this life, this house, this isn't imagination. It's proof. And before I tell you what I did when I opened that door, let me ask you something. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from silence? Because if you have, this story's for you. If stories like this mean something to you, stories of claiming your space after they tried to erase it, then stay. Because here, at Silent Revenge, we don't just survive. We remember. The laughter outside floated through the cracked window like it didn't know any better. Careless. Sweet. Like it had permission to be there. I sat cross-legged on my futon. Paint stains on the fabric. A half-finished canvas propped against the wall. I should have been working. I wasn't. My inbox blinked one unread message. Maybe it was the gallery? Maybe a grant. Maybe a miracle. I clicked. Subject Hale Family Reunion. Summer 2014. For a second, my heart lurched. But I knew what I was really opening. A reminder that the door was never meant for me. The email was full of plans. Picnic dates. Potluck themes. Sunscreen reminders. Brandon tossing a football. Evelyn under a parasol. Mom's cucumber sandwiches praised like culinary poetry. And me nowhere. No RSVP addressed to me. No side note. Not even a lazy. Let us know if you're in town. Just. Absence. I refreshed. Nothing. Checked spam. Still nothing. I stared at the screen long enough for the silence to shape itself into something sharp. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a decision. I opened Instagram like I needed one more wound. Mallory had posted a photo my mom, Evelyn, and Aunt Diane on a sunny patio. All smiles. All florals. Caption plotting. The reunion. Family first. I sat perfectly still. The room was already hot. But suddenly it felt tighter. Like grief had mass. Like exclusion had weight. My eyes found the mural I painted last winter. Sunflowers. Wild and bold. Climbing up the cracked plaster wall. Back when I still believed being different was allowed. I opened another tab and searched my inbox reunion. Hail. Invite. Nothing. But there were still emails from Brandon crypto advice. And from Mom? Forwarding articles with subject lines like, just thinking of you. Honey. Sure you were. I opened a new draft. To Mom. Hail at Gmail. Come subject quick question. Hey Mom. Hope you're well. Just wondering. I saw the reunion email. Did I miss an invite, love? S. Sent. The second I hit send, I regretted it. But not because I doubted my place. Because I already knew the answer. My phone buzzed. Naomi. Ugh. Just found out I wasn't invited to Leah's wedding. Not even a text. Her mom hugged me at church last month. Me same. My family's pretending I don't exist? She replied with a broken heart emoji. Then a gif of someone flipping a table. I smiled. Barely. Naomi always knew how to throw just the right amount of shade. Buzz. Another message. Mom. Hi, sweetie. Not sure. Maybe your grandmother thought you'd be uncomfortable. You know how big groups get sometimes. Love you. I read it once for the words. Then again for the silence between them. They didn't forget. They didn't worry. They excluded me. On purpose, I created a new folder on my desktop. Named it Proof. Dragged in the email. The Instagram post. The reply from Mom. The text from Naomi. Click. Click. Save. Not because I needed revenge. Because I needed to remember it wasn't my fault. And sometimes, that's the only thing that keeps you standing. We moved into that apartment in early 2015, me and Naomi. A shoebox with plumbing from the 70s and walls so thin we could hear the neighbor's cat cough. The kitchen wasn't really a kitchen. More like a shelf with a sink and a portable stove. But we didn't complain. We transformed it into a creative war zone, paint cans. Costume racks. Canvases stacked where cereal boxes should have been. Naomi called it the lab. I called it home. On our first Friday night, we sat under a leaking pipe. Sipping lukewarm tea from chipped mugs. No family bullshit. Naomi said, raising her mug. We're our own blood now. Deal. I clinked mine against hers. Deal. She never asked what really happened between me and the Hales. And I never asked about the scar on her wrist, jagged. Like lightning. The one her mother gave her, the night Naomi came out. We didn't need the stories. We already knew the ending. They decided we were inconvenient. Not broken. Not bad. Just too much to be loved comfortably. By day, Naomi ran auditions in grimy basements for her one-act play. By night, I painted until my fingers cramped on canvases. On walls. On junk mail that I turned into protest pieces. We worked for scraps and created from scraps. We made art like it was survival. Because it was. Every rejection letter. Every address not found. Every gallery no-show I kept them. In a box under my bed. Cold. Flat proof of how invisible I'd become. I once mailed a Christmas card to my old house. It came back unopened. I didn't cry. I just added it to the box. One night, Naomi came home soaked from a thunderstorm. Mascara smeared like war paint. Boots squelching water. She dropped her bag and said, I'm still invited. As long as I go alone. Her voice cracked. My sister's wedding, but I can't bring Sam. Too queer for church photos. I guess I didn't say a word. Just wrapped the thickest blanket I could find around her shoulders and sat beside her on the floor. No music. No advice. Just ramen. Shared silence. The kind of silence that says, you're not broken. They are. We didn't need family dinners or group photos. We had each other. And the unspoken vow we may have been cast out, but we will never cast ourselves aside. I didn't mean to start collecting them, but one day, I realized I had a drawer full of no's. Letters from residencies. Returned postcards. Envelopes stamped address not found. They piled up quietly, one silent dismissal at a time. At first, I thought I'd throw them out, but my hands refused. Instead, I found a shoebox and slid them in. One by one. It wasn't bitterness. It was record-keeping. I mailed a Christmas card to the old house. Even signed it, love. Sienna. It came back unopened. I placed it gently on top of the stack. A small piece of truth. Undeniable. They weren't waiting for me. They weren't wondering. They were fine. Without me. And the city. It didn't care either, but at least it didn't lie about it. New York gave nothing for free. But it didn't demand I shrink to fit Either. Nobody asked why I didn't go home for Christmas. Nobody questioned why I listed Naomi as my emergency contact. People here just assumed your past had burned. And you'd started walking through the smoke. In that way, the city felt more honest than blood. So I let the box grow. Every no, every ghosted email, every unreturned gesture, it all went in. Even the art rejections, especially those. It didn't make me feel better, but it made me real. One night, I found Naomi in the hallway, soaking wet from a downpour. She held out a wrinkled envelope, her hair still dripping. "What's this?" I asked. She glanced at it, then back at me. "Your birthday, 2 years ago. Found it in the trash behind the theater." The handwriting was familiar. "Mom." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Naomi watched me carefully, then said, "One day they'll knock." She paused. "And when they do, I hope you answer with silence." I nodded. "Not just silence." I whispered, "My name is on the deed. Mine alone." It started with a gallery. Of course it did. He stood too long in front of my painting. A burnt dining room with no chairs, titled Inheritance. He didn't ask, "What's it about?" He didn't dissect the symbolism. He just said, "I get it." I don't know why, but I do. His name was Elliot. He worked at an architecture firm, 2 subway stops away. Always carried a leather notebook. Always listened more than he spoke. We got drinks twice. Walked through Central Park like people pretending not to be on dates. There was no magic moment. No breathless kiss in the rain. Just Kiet. And space. And someone who didn't need to solve me to stay. One night, back at my studio, I showed him the box. The one under my bed. The one filled with returned mail and rejection. "I don't know why I keep it." I said, "Maybe so I don't forget they started it." He didn't flinch. Didn't tell me to let it go. He just said, "You don't need a reason. Sometimes the record matters more than the people." That silence between us, it didn't hurt. It held. He brought no apologies. No resque. Just presence. And in a world that had offered me nothing but loud judgment or quiet erasure, that, somehow, was enough. Maybe you've been there too. Holding on to proof, just so you remember you're not crazy, just unseen. If this story feels like a whisper from somewhere inside you, stay with us. Here at Silent Revenge, we don't forget. We create from what tried to erase us. The morning poured itself into the house like honey. Thick. Golden. Slow. It slid across the hardwood floor. Kissed the edges of the steel staircase. Lit up the sculpture in the corner like a flare from another lifetime. I stepped into the living room barefoot. The floor was warm. Not just from sunlight, from the years I spent building a space no one else could take credit for. Nothing in this house was inherited. Nothing came from a wedding registry or family attic. Every chair, every frame, every inch of paint, chosen. On purpose, out loud, in rebellion. No beige. No safe colors. No, this matches everything. I wanted contradiction. I wanted tension and texture and proof that taste doesn't have to be quiet to be valid. In the corner, a 7-foot sculpture twisted up from rusted iron, like a wound healing from the inside out. Ugly to some. Sacred to me. My name was etched in its base. The coffee table was made from reclaimed glass and blackened steel. I welded it myself. Signed it. Claimed it. From the kitchen island, Naomi spun slowly with a croissant in one hand and a smile on her lips. She let out a low whistle. "Okay. Girl, are we in a Vogue spread or did I walk onto the set of an indie sci-fi?" I grinned. "Shooting for post-emotional carnage, but make it chic." She leaned against the marble. Took a bite. "Success suits you. You know that." "Right," I nodded. But I didn't say thank you. Because her words weren't flattery. They were recognition. And recognition doesn't taste sweet. It tastes earned, heavy, and quiet. Elliot walked in, hair still damp from the shower, towel slung over his shoulder. He glanced around. The guest room is bigger than our first apartment. Naomi raised her croissant like a toast. To the upgrade. And to not having to duct tape the windows shut every time it rained. We wandered from room to room. The upstairs studio was drenched in natural light. The gallery wall downstairs held only the pieces I refused to sell. Every one of them was a sentence I hadn't been allowed to say aloud. Naomi stopped in front of a painting. Silenced geography. A map of Chicago with all the family addresses blacked out. "You're not bitter," she whispered. "You're archiving." I shrugged. "Someone has to tell the story." It was just a photo. Me. Standing on the front steps of the house. K's in Shunned. Caption begin again. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't hashtag anything. Just posted. Not for attention, but because something that hard won deserved to be seen. A few likes. A couple of emojis. And then Courtney Lancaster liked it. And seconds later, direct message Courtney. "Is this your place?" My thumb hovered over the reply button. Froze. Naomi glanced over my shoulder. Her eyes narrowed. "Told you. This is how it starts." I didn't answer. I stared out the window instead. The lake shimmered like memory. Beautiful. But dangerous if you stayed under too long. They don't see the years. Naomi said. They only see the photo. The house. The win. I nodded. She wasn't wrong. The silence I had lived in for so long, it had shape now. Rooms. Walls. Art. Proof. And now they wanted back in. Not because they missed me, but because they could see me from the outside. It looked easy. But this house was built brick by brick from grief. Every corner measured in ache. Every choice made in defiance. I turned off my phone. Let it hum with unread messages. The wind pressed gently against the glass. The house stood still. And so did I. Waiting. Because I already knew the doorbell was next. The doorbell rang. Not a buzz. Not a knock. A perfect, polite chime. Like it belonged to a better memory. I set my mug down. Didn't rush. I already knew who it was. Security feed confirmed it. Evelyn. Diane. Brandon. Pastel outfits. Controlled smiles. Like, grief was something one could edit with a soft filter. For a moment, the world tilted. Not enough for the wind to stop or the light to dim. Just enough for my stomach to turn. Evelyn stood at the front like a statue dressed for Sunday. Pearls. Pressed ivory blouse. A face powdered into perfection. Diane hovered awkwardly behind her, clutching a gift bag. And Brandon. His tie was too tight. His smile trying too hard. The sun cast long, judgmental shadows behind them. I didn't blink. Didn't smile. Just opened the door. Look at you, Evelyn said. Voice warm with rehearsed nostalgia. All grown up. I stepped aside. Flat. Neutral? Come in. They entered slowly. Not like guests. Like royalty returning to a throne they never earned. Their eyes darted everywhere. Taking inventory. Every rug. Every wall. Every sculpture. As if proof of my success made them uncomfortable. Evelyn's gaze locked onto the chandelier above the stairs. It's admirable, she said, nodding toward the sculpture near the fireplace. Rusted steel curled like something halfway between collapse and creation. I said nothing. If she wanted a performance, she'd have to pay for tickets. Diane stepped forward, pressed a bag into my hands. Just a little something from Neiman's. Brandon's daughter picked it. She's thinking of art school. Can you believe I could believe she existed? I couldn't believe that was their opener. Brandon shuffled closer. This place is incredible. Sienna. I didn't know you know, come this far. Neither did you. I replied. He flinched. Not a big movement, but it cracked the gloss. Evelyn glided through the hallway like she was inspecting evidence. Nice to see you found your niche, she murmured. The city's changing fast. Isn't it? Your connections must be useful with all these developers swarming the lakefront. From behind the foyer wall, Naomi tapped her foot once. Our code. Did you hear that I nodded slightly? Evelyn stopped in front of a painting. The ones we buried without names. You've always had spirit, she said. Studying the strokes. Even as a child, you never quite blended in. But perhaps that was your charm. Charm, Diane echoed, laughing like it hurt her cheeks. Oh, and Nathan's graduation is soon. Thought maybe you'd want to be involved. Nathan. A name I hadn't heard in 6 years. He blinked. She fake laughed again. Oh, don't be silly. Family is family, even when it drifts. No, I said, stepping forward. Voice low but clear. Drifting is what leaves do in autumn. What you did was exile. The room shifted. Tension thick as fog. Evelyn's smile twitched. Just a little. But enough. Naomi leaned against the archway. Arms folded. Depends on which way the water's flowing. Don't you think? They ignored her. Of course they did. Brandon cleared his throat. Maybe this could be a turning point. I folded my arms. A turning point to what his eyes flicked toward Evelyn. She gave him nothing. But the message was clear. Naomi's phone was still recording. Screen dim but alive. I looked at them one by one. And said, steady. This isn't about Nathan. So tell me, what do you really want? Because they thought I'd forgotten. They thought silence meant surrender. They were wrong. Dinner was polite. Topolite. Soft clinks of silverware. Brandon talking about how fast time flies. Evelyn complimenting the lighting. Diane laughing a beat too late. Courtney poking at her salad like it held secrets. Naomi served lasagna. Elliot poured wine. I watched. I measured the room in heartbeats. They thought this was a meal. They thought this was reconciliation. It was neither. It was evidence. And I was done letting them pretend. I stood. Lifted my wine glass. I want to show you something, I said. Every fork paused midair. Eyes turned toward me. Some eager. Some bracing. I walked to the tablet. Tapped the screen. The projector blinked to life on the far wall. First slide, screenshot of the family reunion email thread. Everyone included except me. Second slide, Evelyn's reply to Brandon. Let's keep it small. You know who's always been disruptive? Third photo from that same reunion weekend. Laughter under string lights. The caption family first. The room stiffened. Chairs creaked. Napkins clenched. Just a few highlights. I said, there's a whole decade. Time-stamped. Geotagged. Zorted. Naomi leaned against the wall. Silent but sharp. Elliot didn't speak. He didn't have to. His hand rested lightly on the back of my chair. Next slides. A wedding program. My name. Missing. A holiday group chat. Years of activity without me. Brandon looked down. Diane opened her mouth. Then closed it. Finally. She spoke. I don't think this is fair. That wasn't intentional, Naomi muttered. Oh. Please. Then Evelyn's voice cut through. Cold. Clear. Wrapped in silk. We did what we had to. You were unstable. Courtney's fork hit her plate. I turned to Evelyn. Unstable? She blinked. You painted your dorm windows black, she said softly, as a cry for help. That. Naomi snapped. I was an art installation. It won an award. Silence again. But not the comfortable kind. I tapped the tablet once more. New slide. A waveform. Audio. Evelyn's voice. From earlier that day, the city's changing fast. Isn't it I imagine your connections must be useful with all these developers swarming the lakefront? On screen, the transcript. Below it, timestamp. Location. Verification mark. The room dropped 10 degrees. I looked at Naomi. You recorded that. She didn't blink. Of course I did. Courtney closed her eyes. Brandon whispered. Mom. But Evelyn didn't flinch. She smiled instead. You'll regret this. I met her eyes. I already regretted ever thinking you were family. They left through the same door that once never opened for me. No dramatic exit. No final insult. Just the soft shuffle of shoes across marble. Evelyn walked out first. Chin high. As if her dignity had survived. Diane followed. Her gift bag now awkward in her hands. Brandon lingered the longest. He looked like he wanted to say something but didn't. He just nodded once. Like that could mean anything now. And I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. Or throw back accusations. I didn't cray. I simply locked it. Clicked the bolt. Turned the deadlock. That was it. And something in me. Something old finally exhaled. The air in the house felt different. Like it could breathe again. Like I could. The morning light stretched across the lake. Golden and unbothered. No more footsteps in the foyer. No more voices behind closed doors. Just the gentle hum of peace that had nowhere to hide anymore. Naomi sat on the back patio. Cross-legged. Second espresso in hand. Sunglasses tilted. Not kite on straight. Inside. Elliot flipped pancakes. Humming a song only he could hear. It didn't feel like a triumph. It felt like stillness. Like exhale. Like this is mine now. Fully. I walked the house slowly. Barefoot. Step light. Not because the past was gone, but because I no longer carried it. I paused at the sculpture wall. The pieces hadn't changed. But I had. They no longer whispered pain. They reflected memory. Contained. Acknowledged. And no longer in control. I had outlived the silence. Not by defeating it, but by building something bigger than it could erase. The knock came not at the front door, but the side. Quiet. Unassuming. Almost shy. I opened it. Brandon stood there. No tie this time. No blazer. Just a man holding the hand of a small girl with big eyes and a sketch pad hugged to her chest. This is Emma, he said. She asked if she could meet you. Emma looked up. Are you the one who made the house I knelt? I am. You like it? She nodded. Then opened her sketch pad. A crayon drawing. A wide glass house. A huge tree. And a figure standing tall on the front steps. That's you, she said. You look like a hero. He blinked. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. From behind me, Naomi whispered. Damn right. She does. I reached behind the door and handed Emma a box wrapped in red ribbon. Here, I said. Real sketch pencils. For real stories. Her eyes went wide. Thank you. She ran to Naomi, who knelt beside her and asked about the tree in the drawing. Brandon lingered. I'm not here to speak for them, he said quietly. I know I stayed quiet too long. I should have looked for you. I nodded. You're here now. He looked down. Emma, she looks up to you. She'll grow up knowing the truth. I studied him for a moment. Then make sure she grows up asking for it. Not swallowing silence. He nodded again. Slower this time. Then turned to watch his daughter giggle over Naomi's exaggerated pancake flipping movements. Later that afternoon, I stood in my studio. The sunlight came in sideways, framing the announcement board in gold. The papers tacked there weren't gallery dates or show invites. They were blueprints, For something new, the Sienna Project. A home for artists without homes. 10 scholarships. A mentorship network. Partnerships with Naomi's Theater and Elliot's firm. We'd build studios. Stages. Spaces where no one had to ask permission to belong. For every kid who was too loud, too strange, too much, there would be a door that didn't close behind them. A room that never forgot their name. Not a revenge. Not a response. A reality. I'd spent years collecting proof of who didn't want me. Now I was collecting possibility. Momentum. Legacy. My phone buzzed. Voicemail. Evelyn Lancaster. You've made your point. Can we talk like grown-ups now? I held the phone for a moment. Not in anger. Just long enough to feel the weight of it. Then I deleted the message. No reply. No hecho? Just the sound of wind brushing the lake, and a locked door that would never open again. Because I didn't need it. I had built my own. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever stood outside a door that never opened, then know this, you don't need to wait. You can build your own. And if stories like this speak to you, stories of quiet strength and unapologetic truth, stay with us here at Silent Revenge. Because sometimes the loudest justice is simply never asking for permission again. They came with pastel smiles and borrowed warmth. They spoke of healing like it was a two-way street. When they'd paved over mine years ago, they used words like family, as if they hadn't rewritten the definition to exclude people like me. They tried to skip the apology and move straight to the reunion. But I don't live in amnesia. I don't confuse politeness with peace. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw their names back at them like stones. I didn't curse them. That would have meant I still needed something from them. Instead, I gave them a mirror. Let them see what they did, what they chose, and who I became in the silence they left behind. Because justice doesn't always wear a robe or hold a gavel. Sometimes, it walks barefoot through a house they swore you'd never own. Surrounded by art they'll never understand. Sometimes it looks like silence that no longer fears being mistaken for weakness. Sometimes, it's not a battle won, but a weight set down. And a door locked without a bang. Naomi said it best. This time, they saw your house. But they missed the story. Maybe they always will. But the story was never theirs to tell. It was mine. And now it's here. For whoever needs it. If this story made you pause, if you've ever stood in the silence they left behind and learned to breathe anyway, then maybe, just maybe, you're part of this. 2. At Silent Revenge, we don't chase belonging. We build places where we already belong. And if that means something to you, a comment, or even just whispering I see you is more than enough. You don't need to knock. You're already inside.